Thank you for visiting Past the Wire TV, the YouTube channel of PastTheWire.com.
They're off in the 2023 First Crop Sires Race. Maximum Mischief makes the lead with the most 2-year-old maiden special winners by any sire. On the backstretch, Matoli and Omaha Beach close the gap with stakes performers from coast to coast. Vino Rosso finds his best and leads on the turn with 4 Grade 1 colts on dirt. But it's Matoli with his 3rd TDN Rising Star, your champion freshman, leading an impressive Spendthrift Superfecta.
New DRF All Access Past Performances. With one best-in-class product, you now get all 3 past performance formats. Go to drf.com and use coupon code 1FREEPP for a free single card today.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Past the Wire TV. I am joined today by Jeff Franklin. Somebody really needs no introduction with Thoro-Graph right now, but has an extensive, and I mean extensive background in the industry. Jeff, thanks for coming on the show again. Truly appreciate it.
Of course, John. It's a pleasure to be here. Let's do this.
Love talking horses with you. You know that, but I wanted to do this show because, I always ask people, let me know what you want to see. Let me know what you want to hear. Let me know what you want us to do. And overwhelming response was Thoro-Graph show, talking about the fundamentals and introducing people that have not used it, or maybe that use it but are not ace or expert with it, going into some of the fundamentals, some of the basics, some of the things to look for, and how to get started. So we'll kind of lead with that, and then I think we'll wrap up with a couple of key angles or key things that you look for or identify. I'll share some that I do, and I think that people will get a lot out of it. And I'll start by saying, if you've been watching our Thoro-Graph shows on Past the Wire TV, and if you've been using Thoro-Graph and going to their seminars for some of the big races, then you already know that it's an invaluable tool, and absolutely, if you put in the work, you can get an edge. Would you agree with that, Jeff?
Yeah, and really, John, to me, I put my money where my mouth was. In a former lifetime, I was an agent for Gary Stevens and Pat Valenzuela, and Robbie Davis and Jose Santos, and I was lucky because I was the first agent on the West Coast who Jerry Brown gave access to the sheets.
Right.
And I said, with Gary, I set an all-time record for wins at Santa Anita, and it was like shooting goldfish in a barrel with a shotgun because nobody else could discern, what I could. So I'm a real believer in the Thoro-Graph product.
Yeah, and I remember those days, okay, when the use of the sheets was a lot more limited than it is today, and now. Why I think this show will be so beneficial to people is now you have to dig a little deeper. You have to really focus. You're not going to just, take a glance and have an edge. You really kind of got to, do your homework to find that edge, because now they've become so popular. So many people are using them that when something glaringly, just stands out, a lot more people are on it than, 10, 15, 20 years ago when, might have been just a handful.
You're right, and because Thoro-Graph is so widely distributed now, at minimum, you need to know what the other guys are betting with. Why is that 10-to-1 shot bet down to 9-to-2? Oh my God, it has great numbers. Now I get it.
Right.
And so there you go. And still, I think it's a tremendous edge, and really helps, I think, blow up the mystery of how horses develop, and when they're going to run poorly sometimes, and when they're going to run well sometimes. So
I agree 100%. So somebody brand new to Thoro-Graph, okay, they buy Thoro-Graph for a particular card. They look at a sheet that's got a bunch of information on it. What are they looking at, and what are they looking for? What is Thoro-Graph going to tell them?
So, by way of background, Jerry Brown, as president of Thoro-Graph, began developing these numbers and perfecting them some 30 years ago in the 1980s. Actually, 40 years ago, I guess. And really, what they'll be looking at is a series of vertical columns that will represent a year in a horse's life. On those columns will be plotted a bunch of numbers. It's really pretty simple. The lower the number, the faster the horse ran that day. And the numbers are plotted by date. So let's suppose a horse runs 12 times in a year. In that vertical column, you'll get 12 numbers. And it will show you how the horse is running in form, out of form. Predictably, when do they regress? We call that a bounce. When do they run slower? When are they set up to run faster, run a new top, as we call it? And one thing that Thoro-Graph really helped to quantify, the bounce is so important because too many times horses will, without the sheets, will run poorly in the public's eyes, and yet it's very predictable when you're using Thoro-Graph.
Right.
And so the vertical columns, typically there are 4 of them. Let's suppose it's a 2-year-old or a 5-year-old. You see a 2, 3, 4, and 5-year-old vertical columns. You'll see those numbers plotted on there. To the left of the sheet, you'll see statistical information about the trainer and about the sire. And really, a lot of it is kind of conventional stuff. What are the winning percentages for the trainer as a 2-year-old, training 2-year-olds, maiden allowance, drop downs, etc. On the sire stuff, we call that Thoro-Graph index. That's really neat stuff because what it tells you, John, is based on hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of progeny for a particular sire, what are the tendency of those horses? Do they run well on dirt, turf, long, short, 2-year-old, 5-year-old, etc.? So really, it's a wealth of information at a glance. And it's physical stuff. You get to use it. And after, my favorite story is Jerry first sent, I was Gary Stevens' agent in the late 1980s. Gary came out of the starting gate, gets thrown to the turf. He breaks his ankle, so he's going to be out 3 weeks. I said, okay, the good news about this is I get to just take some time off. I met a fellow agent friend of mine in Vegas, supposed to be for a weekend. Jerry finds out I'm going to Vegas. He starts sending me the sheets every day. I had no introduction to him. I end up staying 3 weeks.
Love it.
Killing him, just killing him.
Love it.
So really, it's something that to get invested in is not that difficult, and in time you will get a level of mastery just on your own.
Right, and ultimately, if you put in the time and stick with it, you will get rewarded. Now, you said 2 things I wanna elaborate on. Well, one I want to just touch base on. The other I want to elaborate on. You talked about the bounce. Just so everybody knows, Jerry and I did a show a couple of months back specifically on the bounce, what to look for, how to identify it, how to see it in advance, how to know when it's a true bounce, when it's, maybe not, horses that can bounce and win the race anyway. We covered all of that, and I will put a link to that show on this show. So anybody that watches this and hadn't seen that, wants to go back, you'll be able to do that. So that's that. But one of the things you said was the lower the number, the faster the horse ran that day. Okay. Now, any handicapper can open up Racing Form, Formulator I use, Brisnet, whatever past performances they use, and say, okay, well, this horse ran, 3/4 of a mile or 6 furlongs in, a minute 10 and 2. Okay. And I kind of know the answer, but I'd rather you explain it. What goes into determining that, 2 horses might have run on the same day or even different days and run 1:10 and 2, but one ran much faster than the other?
It's a perfect setup and perfect question. So there are dozens and dozens of factors that go into generating the number. And it's kind of counterintuitive in one sense, because most speed ratings The higher the number, the faster the horse ran.
Right.
The Thoro-Graph, the lower the number the horse ran. So once you get accustomed to that, the sorts of things that Jerry looks at are ground loss, weight carry, wind, position of the starting gate. You know, that's something a lot of guys don't know. The starting gate is not always put in the same place.
Right. The run up is you. People don't realize that, you know.
Right. Most important, not most important, of equal importance, there's a real secret sauce about how the track is playing between race days and during race days. And again, over 35 years, whatever it's been, Jerry's perfected that sliding track variant so that a 110 flat in the first race might not get the same number as a 110 flat in the ninth race, all other factors being considered.
Right.
It might, but it might not. And there are a lot of, Jerry's been paid a lot of attention how tracks dynamically change during the day. And it's really wickedly effective with drying out racetracks, sloppy racetracks, and things like that.
Right. I was going to touch base on that because there are so many different factors that affect how a track plays during the course of a day. And one of the, big mistakes that I think a lot of handicappers make, even seasoned ones, is they're too fast to jump on the lack of a better term, bias bandwagon, and they watched two races and two horses went wire to wire. One was the only speed, one was just better or faster than the other, and like, oh, you got to be on a lead to win. So I think that's a mistake that Thoro-Graph can help you avoid. The other thing I think is that different tracks are affected differently by things that occur during the day. Like you said, drying out, rain, slop, mud. Sometimes, some tracks, when it rains, the outside or the crown or the middle of the track might play better. The rail, plays worse, or vice versa. And Thoro-Graph, correct me if I'm wrong, takes those things into consideration and saves a player like myself, okay, who really likes to have as much information as I can in front of me and then make a decision on, how I want to use or calculate that information. It saves somebody like me a world of time to go and research each horse and each race and come up with, an opinion on a particular race, how fast or slow it was based on all these conditions, when I can look at Thoro-Graph and just see a number and know that it's factoring in all these different things.
It is. And, to get a little out of the sequence you started with, but I have to take the baton you just passed me. When Jerry's team, and he has an entire staff of people that are analyzing the races during the day from all the tracks. And when they sense a dead rail, they'll put an X next to the number. And and again, folks, except the lower the numbers, the better. So suppose you see a horse that runs 10, 10, 10, 21 with an X. So the horse is capable of running a 10. And on this day, the horse is running on a dead rail, ran nowhere. Well, think out what dynamite that is, because the public's saying, oh, John's baby just ran horrible. He must be getting out of form. But you and I know it was just a dead rail. The horse is fine. He's likely going to run back to the 10. Oh, and by the way, he'll probably be 15-1 because everybody else is throwing the race out. Right. So that's one of my favorite angles. That dead rail, just throw it out and go back to the prior numbers. Lightning in a bottle, baby.
Right. And I'm going to broaden that a little bit because you touched base on one of my favorite angles as well. I love betting horses off a bad or subpar race in the form when I know what the reason for that race was and nobody else does. And a lot of times I don't know what it is because I'll watch the replay, I'll do my research, and I'm like, he just didn't fire, didn't like the track, maybe was sick, maybe was this, maybe was that, and I don't know what the answer is then, but I have him on my list as a horse I liked and ran subpar. So next time he runs, I get Thoro-Graph, and I may see that X, or I may see some explanation. I'm like, now I've got the excuse that I couldn't see or didn't know about on my own. Now I've got the reason, and I could possibly bet the horse if I like the conditions on that day, because I've always got to like the conditions on that particular day. But at least now I've got the information in front of me, so I've got bullets in the gun, so to speak, to make an informed decision. So,
Right.
you know, and there doesn't have to be a dead rail. There are all other kinds of reasons. Could be, you know, parked wide or something. I mean, there are all things like that can factor into that number. And one of the things that I like on the website is, you know, you can just print out until you get familiar all the symbols, everything, what they mean, right off the website. So, you know, that's an advantage, or at least an assist in helping people get familiar with what they're looking at.
Okay, the glossary is really it's very helpful, and it's not like there's a million things. There's about 10 or 15 relevant notations. You get them pretty easy. You know, Lasix on, dead rail, trainer change, etc. Once you get all that down, turf, short, long, it's pretty easy stuff.
Right. It becomes almost like second nature. I mean, you know,
totally. Yeah,
it's a fast read, and you know, extremely helpful. And
right.
the proof is in the pudding. I find, well, before we get to that, negative numbers. Let's talk a little bit about, because you said the lower the number, the faster the race. Sometimes horses run really fast and get lower than that zero. Zero is the lowest number. So talk a little bit about negative numbers, because then once they run past that zero, then it changes. Then, you know, a 4 negative is faster than a 2 negative, you know? So
that's right. And so, you know, as the breed has progressed, horses have gotten faster and faster. And I would reckon, I've never asked Jerry this, but I'm assuming it's correct. In the old days, the scale went down to, let's say, roughly a 0. And the 0 was, you know, Forgo, you know, was a magnificent horse. Well, horses have gotten faster. And so now they had to basically expand the scale to accommodate that. And you get a flight line who ran a -8 continuously.
Is that the fastest number ever?
You know, doggone it, I forget.
I know Dreaming of Julia ran a freaky fast race one time before the Oaks. But I think Flightline might be the fastest number ever. I'm not sure.
And he did it continuously. I mean, he was just a beast, obviously, a beast of a racehorse. And I know that sometimes visually you don't really think that a horse ran as fast as they ran. A great example to me was Ghost Sapper when he won the Classic. He ran a -6.5 or something. And I thought, yeah, he was impressive, but not, I didn't think he at that point was the fastest horse in history, but he was.
Right.
Who would have thought, right?
Yeah, no, I agree. Another thing that I think is important to mention, and can be a pitfall if you're not aware of it. Okay. I always say believe your eyes, but sometimes your eyes can fool you when it comes to horses, but numbers don't lie. And one of the things I learned, and it was actually, of all people, Bobby Frankel, who explained this to me. Okay. When a horse runs a very fast number, okay, sometimes you'll watch the race and it'll appear that the horse did it very easily and he's eased up almost. And we watched a race together when he explained this to me, and it was his horse that won, and the horse won geared down, and it was an extremely fast race, and he cursed. And I'm like, what's the matter with you? He goes, ran too fast. I'm like, he did it easy. Because doesn't matter. I'm running back in this other race. That's the race I want to win. Now I got to worry, you know, whatever, till that race. I'm like, I don't understand. And he said, and, you know, it made sense after he said it, but he goes, and I'll just use this as an example. I don't remember the race or the, you know, how fast he is, but he goes, he ran 108 flat. Looks like he ran easy. Okay. It's not a lightning fast track. He goes, what do you think he would have ran if the jockey, he's not going to run any faster than 108 flat. So no matter how it looked, that race was extremely fast, and he's going to show the effects of that race. So,
well, here's a way I've explained it to people over the years, John. Maybe this will be helpful. if anybody's ever gone to the gym and trained themselves, you go to a squat rack and you go from 220 pounds to 250 pounds, and 2 days later, you can't even walk, right? The point is, when you do something that's extraordinary, your body pays the price as it rebuilds. And I don't know why that concept is so difficult for handicappers to get through their skulls, but when that horse goes from running, let's say, 109s to that proverbial 108, that horse that can take a lot out of them. And horses, I learned the lesson from Charlie Whittingham, the greatest of the greats years ago. If you don't mind me boring with a quick story, I was Santos' agent. We rode a horse called River Warden in the San Juan. He runs a really good second. I think he's beaten a half length or something. About 2 or 3 days later, I go by the barn. I go, CW, which race at Hollywood do you want me to mark for the horse? He says, Jeff, this horse isn't running for 4 months. And I said, oh my gosh, is he all right? And he goes, he's perfect. He said, you have to realize that horses take more out of themselves in an effort like that than human beings can conceive of. They need time to recover. And Frankel knew that, and Whittingham knows that, and the sheets prove that.
Right.
Exactly. So there you go.
Yeah. No, and that's perfect story. Now, if it was as easy as taking out Thoro-Graph sheet and just looking at every horse in the race and finding who had the fastest number and that horse was going to win, then we'd be doing this show from some, beach in Tahiti somewhere, drinking pina coladas served by naked women with our yacht docked off the coast. It's not quite that easy. I always say it's patterns and repetition and understanding form cycles. And that, for me, is what helps me, with Thoro-Graph is looking for patterns and seeing, trends and learning how form cycles repeat and different, patterns seem to repeat and show. So I always say it's all in the patterns and knowing how to read them. If it was just the fastest number, then everybody would be cashing tickets all day long. So talk a little bit about patterns and what looking at a Thoro-Graph sheet will show in those columns from year to year in a way of patterns.
So you're absolutely spot on. It's very useful to know who, quote unquote, the fastest horse is in the race, but it's not the magical elixir. The magical elixir is taking a holistic view of who's the fastest horse in the race. And here's the best part. Can I expect them to run faster, relatively the same, or to regress? And so that holistic view that the sheet provides gives you an expectation. Wow, this horse should run a lot faster today than he's ever ran, or he predictably ran bad the last couple starts. I think he'll curve back to his best efforts, etc. And the patterns that you see in the sheets are repeatable by age, by sex, by surface and distance, and don't take a PhD to figure out. Let me give you an example. Remember, faster number, lower the number, faster horse. So a maiden goes out and runs 2 13s and then runs a 3. This can happen.
Right.
A sheet player will go, oh my gosh, she's going to slow down. That 3 is going to be an incredible physical effort that's going to take a toll on that horse, and it's not going to recover in 3 to 4 weeks when he goes from that maiden win to an A other than. The traditional past performance player is going to go, oh my God, John's baby just won by 14 lengths. He's going to kill him in this allowance race.
Right.
But the sheet player goes, no, he's going to regress. So 13, 13, 3, kiss of death.
Right.
Versus a horse that runs 10, 8, 6, 6, 3. That's a horse that's developing and likely could sustain that. And you could say, you know what, he might run another 3. That horse, I would say, I can't toss that horse. I'm going to respect the heck out of that horse. So the first horse runs a 3, he's out of here. The second horse, likely contender.
It's funny. We're so on the same page because that's almost exactly one of the patterns I look for. one of the things that I tell people when we do the Thoro-Graph shows, when I'm running down the field, and I'll say, I like this pattern, I don't like that pattern. One of the things that I'll always gravitate to is horses that show slow, steady progression, as opposed to horses that leap forward. And like you mentioned, people that are just traditional handicappers and looking at strictly past performances gravitate to those horses off those big wins, regardless of what they've done before. Most of the time they're short prices, they're almost always vulnerable, and they lose a lot more than they win.
And, I learned the lesson. Remember that trip I was talking about to Vegas all those years ago?
Yes.
I remember, and I can't remember the filly's name, but Jack Vanberg had some filly in a stake, and she had run something like 11-11-2. It was a 5-horse field, like an Aqueduct or something. She goes off 2-5. I knew she wouldn't hit the board, and I think she ran last. It was too much for her. And it was it just taught me the lesson. I've never forgotten it. And, there are two interesting things that are kind of derivatives of that. One is that not only are you handicapping the horse, but you'll learn the trainers that are good developers of horses, and you watch their horses predictably advance. Great example is Chad Brown. Chad is a wonderful developer of horses. And when you see his horses, they'll go 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. He's just always getting them to run.
It's
right?
Amazing.
It's amazing. And yet there are other guys who you'll see 10, 6, 9, 3, 7.
Right.
They're all over the map. And
right. No, I agree. I agree.
And the other thing that's also very useful is getting back to patterns. Depending on the time of year, surface changes, etc., horses typically don't advance incrementally. Even though I just gave the example, you typically don't see 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Typically, it'll be like 10, 10, 10 base. And then you can see the pattern 4, for like a 3-year-old. That's something that we call development. And depending on the horse and the circumstances, you watch out for those guys that can tip their hand and point a horse for a race and tighten those screws. Steve Asmussen, heck, Dallas Stewart is legendary among Sheets players. You should see Dallas when he's preparing a horse for a stake race. 10, 10, 10, 4.
Right. No,
so there you go.
Absolutely. And 9 out of 10 times that 4 is at like 20-1.
Because, there you go.
Everybody's looking at the 10s. And, that's why I think it's so important to really get into the patterns, know the trainers. The sheets do have a lot of the stats, the trainer stats on them.
True.
But I think that's something that comes more with experience than anything else. Just really, paying attention and learning the different trainers. One of the ways I like to get an edge in racing is, zig when everybody zags. Okay. Yeah. And, I've noticed that, people tend to gravitate to multi-race wagers, which, I kind of made my way in this game playing pick sixes when it was a conventional bet, and there weren't all these 50-cent pick 4s and pick 5s diluting all the pools and whatnot. So I was into that. But now when I play the multi-race wagers, I find a great way to use Thoro-Graph and save money on your ticket, which enables you, or I should say me, because people play it differently, but I'd rather, instead of having a pick 4 or pick 5 for 50 cents, I'd like to cut horses out that can't win, that maybe on the past performances might look okay and I might want to use, but when I start doing the patterns and the Thoro-Graph, I'm like, you know what? Too slow. Even if he comes with a new top, too slow. And there are horses that without Thoro-Graph I might use. Now, over a 4 or 5 race sequence, I'm cutting 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 horses. So instead of having it for 50 cents, now I've got it for $2 because I don't have to use those horses that are, quote, too slow. So zig when they zag, everybody's looking for the fastest horse. Sometimes I want to look for horses that are just too slow. They're not fast enough to win in this competition today. And Thoro-Graph can be very helpful that way also. Agree, disagree, and can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, completely. So knowing who to toss is almost as important
As important knowing who to use. Like, I agree.
Right.
Most people don't realize that or see it that way, you know?
They don't. And, it's something I always tell people, the object of what we're doing is not to pick winners, it's to isolate value.
Right.
And, the sheets to me, again, are just so good at helping to determine relative value. And, John, you and I are wired the same way. I don't know the last time I bet a horse under 5-1. Oh, maybe I bet here and there a horse under 5-1, but every day, when you look at the country, there's horses going off 10, 15-1 that should be 3-1. So why not just wait for those and pound on them? Now, that said, we do have horizontals to consider. I don't bet a lot of horizontals because I like to see the horses on the track. But when I do, I play it almost exactly like you said. I look for the tosses and I let the sheets guide me in that regard. I try to disregard the morning line, just say, who am I supposed to be tossing here? Who has a relative value and a relative shot? I isolate on them, and every now and again, the blind squirrel gets the acorn.
Right. No, I agree. Now, I've been playing a long time, and I'll go back. You had Jose Santos's book.
Yeah.
Jose was super nice guy. Okay. I remember once when he was leading rider and had unseated Angel Cordero from the perch at Saratoga that he sat on for so long. One day I was walking into the track at Saratoga with Jose, and we said hello, and he says, "Hey, I got to tell you, I'm working this maiden running today. First thing he goes, I love this horse." I said, and now this was this many years ago, so you know how long it is. I never listen to anybody. I bet my own opinion. I don't care who it is, what they say, what they think they know. Don't know, don't care. Okay. I want to bet my own opinion. So I looked at him even back then. I said, Jose, please don't even, good luck. I appreciate it, but don't tell me nothing. But if you want to tell me something, don't never come tell me a horse that you love. I'd rather you come tell me that you're riding a horse got no shot because he's sore, or he needs 2 more works, or today's not the day. I'd rather you tell me that than tell me that you like a horse, which goes to what you said. It's as important to know a horse that's not going to win as it is a horse that's going to win. And I love that angle on Thoro-Graph. Just too slow, X, too slow, X. And it can save a ton of money if they just want to cut down their ticket. And it also, if you're an aggressive player, enable you, like I said, to play it more than once because you don't have to use as many horses. If you can cut 3, now you can bet 3 horses in a sequence. Now you can double up the what you've got the ticket for. So huge angle. What are some other things that you look for with your experience with Thoro-Graph? What are some of the other angles or patterns that you can identify for players that when they get the sheet, they can look at it and say, this is what Jeff was talking about, or this is something he mentioned to look for. So when they see it, that light bulb goes off.
So by way of like an easy label, I would say I'm looking for the best thing for me is finding a scenario where I have a developing horse that a lot of folks don't know is developing. And one of the great tip-offs is when a young horse, let's say a 3-year-old first half of the year, will be in a racing scenario where they should have regressed and they don't. Here's an example. Horse runs a 10 in his first start sprinting. Trainer waits 5 weeks, comes back and runs a 10 routing. That horse is a coiled spring. He's developing. That 10 routing was every opportunity for that 10 sprint to take a toll on him. And he's going longer. He's supposed to slow down before he goes faster. No, he's paired up. So pairing up on a surface change or on a distance change, to me, coiled spring, you can expect a 6 in the next start after that. That's something that really means a lot to me.
I agree.
The other thing is that the sheets are fantastic about is understanding, for everything we just said, timing of how much time is required between starts for a horse to develop and recover from a prior effort and move forward. So many times people just focus on the winning margin. They'll see a horse he won 2 races in a row by 3 lengths, and factored in with the sheets, you go, okay, he ran a 10 in his first start. He ran a 7 in his second start, so he moved forward. The trainer's only giving him 10 days and whipping him right back for the third start. Going to regress, sure as we're standing here. And when you see it visually on the sheet, it's fantastic. You just say, too quick, he's not going to run good. Versus that same scenario where the trainer, the Charlie Whittingham, said, oh, he ran a 7, I'm going to give him 2 months off. And then a lot of people say, why did he get 2 months off? I'm going to toss him. Well, you and I know, and the Sheets players know, that was a really smart Chad Brown type effort. He's giving his horse a chance to recover, and he's probably going to run a 5 in his next start.
Right.
So timing and to see it plotted on the chart, it's just fantastic. Dynamite.
Right. And the layout and the plotting is a tremendous help to identify these things. One of the things, and we're not quite at that time of year just yet, but we're going to be soon. Summertime, Saratoga time, Keeneland, when you see these 2-year-old stake races, and you've got 7 or 8 or 9 or maybe 10 horses in there, and 8 out of the 10 won their only start by 2 or 3 lengths, and now they're all running back in a stake. And people look at it like, how do I decipher this? And 7 of the 10 went wire to wire in their wins. So I find in those races, Thoro-Graph is a tremendous tool to use. Can you talk a little bit about that scenario?
Yeah. It's a great, and you kind of stole my thunder, because when horses, particularly for shipping type meets, take a Kentucky Downs, right? You've got an A other than a Kentucky Downs. Who the heck knows? I mean, everybody just won by their maidens by 3 lengths, and they're coming from 5 different racetracks. How do you make sense out of that? Well, I've seen races where in that precise scenario, you got 5 horses who all ran 10s, and 1 horse ran a 6 3/4. And all you see with all of them is they just came off a fresh maiden win, and the 6 3/4 gallops. And who would know? Without that, is a 111 flat at Fairgrounds the same as a 111 flat at Gulfstream? Right. Who knows? Well, the sheets know.
Right. And here's the ideal scenario for that. Okay. And this has happened so many times. You're at Saratoga, you've got the Sanford or one of those races, and Pletcher's horse broke his maiden at Belmont by 5 lengths. Nairad Ortiz is on him, and he's 3 to 5, and he ran a 12. And there's some horse that ran at Delaware, ran a 6, and he's 15 to 1 with Junior Alvarado. You know what I mean? And race goes off. He wins by 3. The pick 4 pays balloons. The pick 5 pays balloons. He pays $30. And everybody's saying, how did Pletcher lose with that, 5-length, open length winner with Irad when they were going in the gate? You kind of knew he had no chance,
And
beautiful scenario.
Right. And the other thing that's so important, getting back to value, I think when you talk about a pattern, or let's say a betting scenario that you can repeat over and over and over again, that's like the perfect scenario you just said. You get a shipper with superior numbers going against, the Pletcher or the Brown or something like that that's bet off the board. Those horses are going to win a lot. They're going to win 50% of the time, let's say. But you get home 1 out of 4 times, you can buy the yacht.
Right. And
1 out of 8 times,
the funny thing is that scenario is going to happen over and over and over again. And, I found over the years that horse players can be very funny. There are people that will watch this show and capitalize on what we just said. there's an equal number of people that will watch this show and be at Saratoga in August and still bet the Pletcher horse, and just lose, because it's so hard sometimes to just adapt to new principles and new things that you learn in this game. And I don't really know why that is. One of the things I talk about, and I go back to when, I played for a living and I had nothing to fall back on. So I had to be very disciplined. Okay. I couldn't afford to take shots. I couldn't afford to chase money after I lost. I had to, sit like a cobra, strike. If I hit, I hit. If I didn't, I had to wait till that next opportunity, because everything I had was in my pocket, and paying my bills depended on what was in my pocket. So one of the things I learned is a concept that I have to be willing to cash less tickets, but win more money when I'm right. I can't use everybody. I can't chase every sequence. I just can't do that. So I was forced, because of my lifestyle, to develop a discipline that I think anybody who has any aspiration to beat this game has to adapt, and it goes against your human nature. You want to instinctively cash as many tickets as you can. That's great. It's not the way to win. What the way to win is to win more money, which may mean cashing less tickets.
Yeah, and I understand people's emotional wiring. Losing is difficult, but I think there were so many great lessons, John, I learned as a jockey's agent. One of them was to take rejection pretty well. I mean, even the most successful jocks lose eight out of 10 times, right?
Right.
But similarly, learning that losing with a purpose is perfectly acceptable. And my betting profile in a week might look like on various days: lose, win a ton of money. Lose, win a ton of money. I'm not interested in hitting little bunt singles. The home runs are what sustain you in this business.
Reminds me of my friend Tommy Hammer Massis, who's a very, very sharp bettor. And, he's won some tournaments, and he's very, personable and, approachable. So people all the time will ask him, "Oh, tell me who to bet. Tell me who to bet. Tell me who you like." And he'll be listening. He goes, "It's not that I don't want to." He goes, "Doesn't make sense for me to tell you, because I'm willing to lose 10 bets in a row and then win a ton of money on that 11th one. You're not. You know what I mean? You're going to, lose this one and maybe the next one and then get mad at me." So he'll explain that. And, most people don't get it. You obviously do, because you have that style. I do, because it's very similar to how I play, but I think that goes against human nature, and instinctively people are just wired to want to, use everybody and cash as many tickets as you can.
Well, and the corollary to that is kind of getting off the Thoro-Graph a little bit, but so many people are, because losing is painful, people cover their bases, and they find that they're alive in a pick three, and they get to the last leg and they start to cover so much. So they invested $24 in the pick three. They might walk away with $600, and they end up spending $100 on, backing their horse up in pick three. I mean, in exactas or trifectas or stuff. And when they lose, when they win, they're actually losing a little bit. And when they lose, they're even losing more. So it makes no sense. And so I think you're right. Having the courage to lose constructively is really essential in this business.
Yeah. And, I'll give you an example of how you may say crazy, but how I'll play. And this would happen a lot when I was playing pick sixes and the pools were big. I could be alive with maybe 4 or 5 horses in the last leg of a pick six. And let's say it was one of those great days where they're all coming back. The smallest one is 60, 70,000. The biggest is 250. Okay. I would look at the horses I like. Now, a lot of people would say, "Oh, what you got to do now is hedge, cover, bet those other horses to win and cover yourself." No, I never even considered that. Okay, what I would do is take the one that I like the best of the ones I'm alive with, because I'm betting my opinion. I don't want to bet against my opinion. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I'm willing to lose. But I would take the one I like the best and then pound that horse in the exactas, the triples, the supers. This way, if any of my other pick sixes win, I'm making a score because I'm not going to dent that money. If I lose, well, I lost. But if that horse wins, the one that I like the best, then I'm hitting that pick six. I'm getting paid 100,000, and I may get paid another 50,000 because I pounded the exacta, the triple, and the super for 50, 20, $100, whatever the case may be. So hedge, no. Press your opinion, yes.
Yeah, and so I agree with you on that as well. We have a lot of agreement in our betting styles, and and I realize time's getting short, but I didn't want to get off before I answered one other question about yours about what sorts of things do I look for?
Absolutely.
This is a very important part of Thoro-Graph, and that is to remember that as horses age, they will develop. And so if you get a horse who ran, let's say, a pair of 12s as a 2-year-old, they're coming off a 4-month layoff, and now they're a 3-year-old, you don't expect them to run a 12. Expect them to run the same horse, probably a 9 or a 10. And too many sheets players just look back at the 12 and go, well, the best that John's baby ran was a 12. And this will allow you to project reasonably that, okay, ran 12s, at Del Mar in July, here it is Santa Anita in April. This horse, I can see the work pattern. It looks like he's working well. Michael McCarthy's training him. He's a good trainer. He's going to run a 9. How does a 9 run here today? How does it do? Oh, he's going to win the race. He's 11-1. Great, let's go. And so remember, to everybody using Thoro-Graph, horses do mature from their 3-year-old to their 2-year-old, their 4-year-old from their 3-year-old year, etc. And particularly, kind of the corollary to that is that I found that turf horses tend to mature best from their 3-year-old to their 4-year-old year. I love early 4-year-olds on the turf. They kick the older horses' butts.
I agree. I don't know exactly why that is, but I've noticed it myself, and it's something that I look for as well. I think this was a great show for people that want to get a little bit more involved or even want to start using Thoro-Graph. On the website, what would you recommend people download? What will they find? And we know we've got the glossary. What else can people go and just download and kind of get more familiar with the website?
They have some videos there that are useful. There is a handicapping forum called Ask the Experts, where a lot of Thoro-Graph players, they talk about everything in the world. Some of it has nothing to do with the sheets. It's sometimes just bitching and moaning about a steward's call, but It's really useful stuff because these are experienced guys, and they'll say, I noticed this, that, or the other thing. What do you guys think about this? And you can gain a lot of knowledge from that. And finally, something that people can do if they haven't joined Thoro-Graph Player Services, if you don't have a Naira Bets account, this is kind of a neat thing you can do. You can sign up for Thoro-Graph. You can then sign up for Naira Bets, and you get a couple $100 from Naira Bets for signing up, and you get $250 worth of free sheets from Thoro-Graph in the way of every day that you bet $25 or more for 10 times, you get a free sheet credit. So basically, you get $250 worth of sheets just to learn them. And a lot of people have really benefited from that and thanked us for putting that on. So there you go.
Appreciate that.
Sure.
Appreciate it. Jeff, thank you so much for coming on. I think we hit some good points. I'm sure we'll do some more shows together in the future. People, thank you for tuning in. A lot of requests for this kind of stuff. So we're going to be doing the Triple Crown races by the Thorograph Numbers and Patterns again this year. Last year, we hit it out of the park. We were spot on in all those races. We knew who was going to go forward, who was going to go fast. We definitely separated the pretenders from the contenders. So we're going to try and do it again this year. So thank you, everybody. Jeff, thank you. I'll shut this off. We'll say goodbye real quick, and ciao for now, everybody.
Thanks, John.
A top 10 first crop sire in 2023, standing at McMahon of Saratoga. 14 first crop winners, including My Shady Lady, winner of the $500,000 New York Stallion Series Fifth Avenue Stakes. Grade 2 winner, Winstock, and stakes winner, Solo Shot. Solo Meanie, the 7th leading freshman sire and the only top 10 freshman sire with a grade 1 or grade 2 winner. He sired a $700,000 two-year-old at the OBS April sale. His juveniles sold for nearly 6 figures on average, more than 12 times the stud fee. Solo Meanie, a controversial DQ from being a grade 1 winner by 2-time Horse of the Year Curlin, standing at McMahon of Saratoga Thoroughbreds. Sure Bet Coffee. Put the giddy up in your cup. Power, we've got the sire power. Central Banker, New York's leading sire 3 years in a row, standing at McMahon of Saratoga. He has 12 black-type winners, including multiple stakes winners and graded stakes placed Bank It, Morning Matcha, and Bank Stink. Central Banker, sire of 6-figure yearlings and 2-year-olds. He produced 9 stakes runners in 2023. Runners have earned $20.5 million on the track. Central Banker, standing at McMahon of Saratoga Thoroughbreds. Tracking trips with Pick 6 King Jon Stettin. It's one of the best tools in horse racing for any level of player. It's your second set of eyes, spotting troubled trips, betting angles, track trends, horses to watch and favorites to fade, 10 figs, ticket structure, and more. At Tracking Trips, you're a friend with benefits. Not a member? You must hate winning money. Join Tracking Trips now. Visit PastTheWire.com and we'll see you in the winner's circle. Remember, nobody does it better.
Does it better.